93% of people with debt say at least 3 of these phrases every single week. These aren't mindset quotes. These are the exact words that signal to your own brain that staying broke is safe. And wealthy people figured this out and quietly deleted these phrases from their vocabulary. Most people never connect the language they use to the financial results they keep repeating. The pattern is hiding in plain sight. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Stick around. In the next 9 minutes, I'll show you all 10, ranked by how much each one is actually costing you. The words you use about money aren't just describing your financial situation. They're creating it. Every sentence you speak about money is a micro decision that shapes your behavior, your identity, and ultimately your net worth. This isn't about positive thinking. It's not about manifestation or pretending you're rich when you're not. This is about the hidden psychology embedded in everyday language. The phrases that sound normal, that everyone around you says, that feel completely harmless. These phrases are quietly building a mental architecture that makes wealth almost impossible. And the strangest part? You probably said at least 3 of them this week without realizing what they're doing to your financial future. Here's the framework for this entire video. I call it the linguistic trap. It works like this. Every time you speak about money, you're doing 3 things simultaneously. First, you're describing your current reality. Second, you're reinforcing a belief system. Third, you're programming your future behavior. Most people think language is passive. You make a financial decision, then you talk about it. But that's backwards. Your language is active, it's predictive. The sentences you use today are the financial decisions you'll make tomorrow. Wealthy people understand this at an instinctive level. They don't guard their language because they read it in a book. They guard it because they've internalized a completely different relationship with money. And that relationship shows up in what they never say. Every phrase on this list represents a mental trap, a way of thinking about money that feels reasonable, sounds normal, but quietly guarantees you'll stay exactly where you are. The goal here isn't to memorize 10 phrases to avoid. It's to understand the psychology behind each one so you can recognize the trap before you fall into it. Let's start with the foundation. When you say something about money, you're not just communicating information to another person. You're communicating information to yourself. Your brain hears everything you say, and it takes instructions from your language. This is basic neuroscience. The reticular activating system in your brain filters reality based on what you repeatedly tell it is true. If you repeatedly say, "I can't afford this," your brain accepts that as an identity statement. It stops looking for ways you could afford it. It stops noticing opportunities. It starts filtering your entire reality through the lens of scarcity. Now here's where it gets interesting. Wealthy people don't say, "I can afford anything." That would be delusional. Instead, they use language that keeps possibility open while maintaining discipline. They say things like, "I'm choosing not to buy that right now," or "That's not aligned with my current priorities." Notice the difference. Same action, different psychology. One statement closes down your brain. The other keeps it active, engaged, searching for solutions. This pattern repeats across every phrase we're going to examine. The wealthy don't use different words because they have more money. They have more money because they've been using different words. Their language creates an internal environment where wealth can grow. Okay, your language might be creating an internal environment where wealth can't survive. And the most dangerous part is how invisible this is. You can't see your own language patterns. They're like the air you breathe, completely normal to you, completely obvious to someone watching from outside. Think about how this plays out in real time. You're at dinner with friends. The bill comes. Someone says, "This is so expensive." Another R person says, "I'm broke this month." Another says, "I can't afford to do this every week." These statements feel like casual conversation. But watch what happens next. The person who said, "I'm broke," just reinforced a broke identity. Their brain heard it, filed it, accepted it as truth. Next week, when an opportunity appears, a side project, a chance to learn a valuable skill, their brain will automatically say, "We're broke, remember?" And they won't even see the opportunity. This is the trap. It's not about one dinner, it's about the cumulative effect of thousands of microstatements that build a financial identity you never consciously chose. Let me walk you through the 10 phrases wealthy people never say, and more importantly, what each one reveals about the speaker's financial operating system. Number 1, "I can't afford it." This is the most common and most damaging phrase in personal finance. Not because it's always false. Sometimes you genuinely can't afford something. The problem is the framing. "I can't afford it" is a statement of permanent limitation. It positions you as powerless. It ends the conversation. Your brain stops working on the problem. Wealthy people replace this with, "How can I afford it?" Notice what happens. The question activates problem solving. It maintains agency. It assumes possibility. A person making $30,000 a year who asks, "How can I afford this?" will find creative solutions, build skills, increase income. A person making $300,000 who says, "I can't afford it," will stay stuck in consumption patterns that keep them broke. The phrase reveals whether you see money as a fixed container or a flowing resource. In real life, this looks like someone wanting to start a business. The "I can't afford it" person sees the $10,000 cost and stops. The "how can I afford it" person breaks it down. What can I do for free? What can I trade for? How can I earn this amount? Who might invest? What version of this can I start with $500? Same desire, different language, different outcome. Number 2, I'll never be rich. This one operates as a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you declare something will never happen, you stop taking actions that could lead to it. Your brain treats it as settled. The wealthy people don't say, "I'll definitely be rich," either, because that's fantasy. They say, "I'm building wealth," or "I'm moving in the right direction." Present tense, active. The phrase, "I'll never be rich," reveals a victim mindset. It positions wealth as something that happens to you, not something you create. It's passive. It removes responsibility. And it feels safe because if you'll never be rich, you never have to try, which means you never have to fail. But here's the hidden cost. That safety comes with a lifetime sentence. Every time you say it, you train your brain to ignore wealth-building information. Someone mentions investing. Your brain says, "Doesn't matter. We'll never be rich anyway." Someone suggests a business idea, same response. You become blind to opportunity because you've linguistically closed the door. This phrase is especially common among intelligent people who use it as armor against disappointment. But the armor doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. Number 3, money doesn't matter. People say this to signal virtue, to show they're not greedy or materialistic, but it's a lie, and everyone, including the speaker, knows it. Money absolutely matters. It buys freedom, security, options, healthcare, education, time. What this phrase actually reveals is discomfort with money, an unwillingness to engage with financial reality. Wealthy people never say, "Money doesn't matter," because they understand exactly how much it matters. What they do say is, "Money isn't the only thing that matters," or "Money is a tool, not a goal." These statements acknowledge reality while maintaining perspective. The person who says, "Money doesn't matter," is trying to opt out of the game while still playing it. They go to work, they pay bills, they stress about rent, but they won't study money, won't learn to invest, won't have uncomfortable conversations about compensation, because money doesn't matter, remember? This is psychological avoidance dressed up as spirituality, and it guarantees financial struggle, because you can't master something you pretend doesn't exist. Number 4, I deserve this. This phrase appears most often right before a purchase someone can't afford. It's the language of emotional spending. I worked hard this week, I deserve this. I've been stressed, I deserve this. Everyone else has one, I deserve this. Notice the pattern. Deserve is being used to override financial logic. Wealthy people understand that the universe doesn't operate on a deserve-based economy. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate, what you build, what you create value for. They never use deserve to justify consumption because they know it's an emotional trick. In practice, this sounds like someone buying a luxury item after a hard week at work. The purchase feels like compensation for suffering. But here's what's actually happening. They're creating a psychological loop where work equals reward equals spending. This prevents wealth accumulation because there's always a reason you deserve to spend. Hard week? Deserve it. Good week? Deserve to celebrate. Nothing happening. Deserve something nice to feel better. The word deserve becomes a permission slip to never build wealth. It converts every emotional state into a reason to consume. Number 5, it's only money. Usually said after a financial mistake or loss, the purpose is to minimize regret, to make yourself feel better about a bad decision. But listen to what it teaches your brain. Money is disposable, replaceable, not worth protecting. Wealthy people never say it's only money because they respect money, not in a greedy way. In the same way, you respect a powerful tool. They might say it's a learning experience or I'll recover from this, but they won't minimize the importance of money itself. That minimization creates carelessness, and carelessness with small amounts leads to carelessness with large amounts. You see this in people who constantly lose money in small ways, forgetting to cancel subscriptions, not tracking expenses, leaving money on the table in negotiations. When it happens, they shrug and say, it's only money. But those small moments add up to a large pattern, a pattern of not protecting what you have, of treating money as infinite when it's not. This phrase reveals a lack of financial self-respect. And people who don't respect money never accumulate it, because accumulation requires careful attention to both earning and protecting. Number 6, I'm not good with money. This is an identity statement disguised as a fact. When you say, I'm not good with money, you're not describing a skill gap. You're claiming a permanent characteristic. It's like saying, I'm a person who is bad with money, and that's who I am. Wealthy people understand that managing money is a skill, not a personality trait. They might say, I'm learning about money, or I need to improve this specific area, but they never claim financial incompetence as an identity, because identity drives behavior. If you're not good with money, why would you study investing? Why read financial books? Why track expenses? It would contradict your identity. This phrase is particularly common among women who've been culturally conditioned to believe money is masculine, and among creative people who believe money management conflicts with artistic identity. But here's the reality. Money management is simpler than most skills you've already mastered. You learn to drive, to use complex software, to navigate social situations. But you tell yourself you're not good with money, and suddenly basic arithmetic becomes impossible. The phrase is a shield against responsibility, and as long as you hold that shield, wealth will be impossible. Number 7, that's what credit cards are for. This reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of debt. Credit cards aren't for buying things you can't afford. They're a payment tool for things you can afford. Wealthy people use credit cards for convenience, rewards, and building credit, but they never use them to bridge the gap between income and lifestyle. When someone says that's what credit cards are for, while buying something beyond their means, they're teaching their brain that debt is income. It's not. Debt is borrowed future income. It's spending tomorrow's money today, which means tomorrow you'll be poorer than you are right now. In everyday terms, this is the person who sees a purchase, checks their bank account, sees insufficient funds, and immediately thinks, I'll put it on the card. The credit card isn't being used strategically. It's being used to avoid reality. To maintain a lifestyle their income doesn't support. Each time they say this phrase, they reinforce a mental model where debt is normal, acceptable, even smart. Meanwhile, wealthy people are asking, can I afford to pay this off immediately? If no, they don't buy it. This isn't about being cheap. It's about living in financial reality instead of financial fantasy. Number 8, I'll save whatever's left over. This sentence reveals a complete misunderstanding of how wealth is built. Saving leftovers means saving never happens, because there are no leftovers. Expenses expand to fill available income. This is Parkinson's law applied to money. If you earn $3,000 and decide to save whatever's left after expenses, you'll find expenses of $3,000. Wealthy people say, I pay myself first, or I save before I spend. They automate transfers. They treat savings as a non-negotiable expense. The phrase, whatever's left over, reveals an amateur approach to money. It shows someone who hasn't yet understood that wealth is built through systems, not through willpower. Watch how this plays out across a year. Person A earns $4,000 a month and says, I'll save whatever's left. At month end, there's always an unexpected expense. Car repair, birthday gift, medical bill. Savings, 0. Person B earns the same, automatically transfers $600 to savings on payday. When unexpected expenses appear, they adjust spending in other categories. End of year, person A has 0, person B has over 7,000. Same income, different language, different system, different outcome. Number 9, I need this. Usually said about something that is absolutely not a need. Real needs are food, shelter, basic clothing, healthcare. Everything else is a want, but people constantly upgrade wants to needs in their language. I need the new iPhone. I need this vacation. I need to eat out tonight. Wealthy people maintain a clear distinction. They say, I want this and I'm choosing to buy it, or this is a priority for me. They own the want, they don't disguise it as a need. This matters because need implies no choice. Need feels like pressure, like you're being forced. Want implies agency, implies decision-making, implies responsibility. When you call something a need that isn't, you're removing your own agency. You're telling yourself you have no choice. And if you have no choice, you can't be blamed for the purchase. It's a psychological trick to avoid accountability, but it comes with a cost. Every false need you create makes it harder to distinguish between actual priorities and impulses. Your entire budget becomes needs, which means cutting spending becomes impossible. Because how can you cut needs? Wealthy people keep the category of needy small and sacred. Everything else is negotiable, adjustable, optional. This clarity allows for strategic decision-making instead of emotional reactivity. Number 10, I'll start when I make more money. This is the procrastination phrase. It sounds reasonable. How can you invest when you're living paycheck to paycheck? How can you start a business when you need every dollar for bills? But here's what this phrase really reveals. A belief that money solves money problems. It doesn't. Behavior solves money problems. The person making $40,000 who says, "I'll start when I make more," will say the exact same thing at $80,000. Because the issue isn't income, it's spending patterns, financial literacy, and the habit of waiting for perfect conditions. Wealthy people understand that you practice wealth-building behaviors before you have wealth. You learn to invest with small amounts. You start a side project while working full-time. You study financial concepts when you're broke. Because those behaviors are what create the wealth. The phrase, "I'll start when," reveals someone who believes wealth precedes wealthy behavior. They have it backwards. Wealthy behavior precedes wealth. You don't wait until you're a runner to start running. You run, and that makes you a runner. You don't wait until you're wealthy to start investing. You invest, and that makes you wealthy. The waiting is the trap. Let's add some numbers to make this concrete. Take the phrase, "I can't afford it," versus "How can I afford it?" Imagine someone wants to invest, but believes they can't afford to save money. They make $50,000 a year. After taxes and expenses, they say there's nothing left. So they save zero. Over 30 years, at a conservative 7% return, they accumulate $0. Now, same person, same income, but they ask, "How can I afford to save?" They find $200 a month. Maybe they cut subscriptions, reduce eating out, take on a small side project. Over 30 years, that $200 a month becomes $244,000. Same person, different question. A $250,000 difference. Or consider, "I deserve this spending." And let's say you emotionally spend an extra $300 a month. Doesn't sound like much. You worked hard. You deserve it. Over 20 years, that's $72,000 spent. But if you had invested that same $300 monthly at 8% return, you'd have over $175,000. The phrase, "I deserve this," didn't just cost you $300 a month. It cost you $175,000 of future wealth. That's the real price of language. Not what you say, what you lose by saying it. The phrase, "I'll start when I make more money," might be the most expensive. Someone at age 25 says they'll invest when they make more. They wait until 35. That 10-year delay, even investing the same amounts afterward, cost them approximately 60% of their potential retirement savings. Because they lost the most valuable ingredient in wealth. Building, which isn't money, it's time. The compound interest on a decade of investing can't be recovered. That phrase, that one sentence repeated across 10 years, might cost someone $500,000 in retirement wealth. Let me show you how this looks in two different lives. Both start at the same place. 28 years old, making $60,000 a year, similar expenses, similar backgrounds. Person A uses the language we've been discussing. They say, "I can't afford to invest right now. I deserve this purchase after a hard week. I'm not good with money. That's just how I am. I'll start when I get a raise." Their daily language reinforces limitation, emotional spending, and procrastination. They're not bad people. They're not stupid. They just have normal language patterns that everyone around them uses. Over the next decade, they get raises. Income goes up to $85,000. But spending rises with it. They carry credit card debt. No emergencies. Fund. No investments. At 38, they're earning more but feeling more stressed about money than they did at 28. The language didn't just fail to help, it actively prevented growth. Person B starts with the same income and expenses, but they use different language. How can I make this work? I'm learning about money. This purchase isn't aligned with my goals right now. I'm starting small today, not waiting. They automate $250 a month to investments. They track spending without judgment. When they get raises, they increase savings proportionally. At 38, they're earning $85,000, but they have $90,000 invested, no consumer debt, 6 months of expenses saved. Same jobs, same industry, same opportunities, but completely different financial realities. The primary difference isn't intelligence, willpower, or luck. It's the linguistic operating system that guided 10 years of micro-decisions. The gap between these two people will only accelerate. Person A will likely hit a financial crisis at some point. Unexpected expense with no savings. Credit card debt that becomes unmanageable. They'll feel victimized by life. Person B will face the same unexpected expenses, but have systems to handle them. At 50, the gap might be $500,000 in net worth. At 65, over $1 million. Not because person B made more money, because their language created different behaviors, which created different systems, which created different outcomes. Now let's project this forward for you specifically. If you continue using the language patterns we've discussed, here's what the next decade looks like. You'll get raises, but never feel financially secure. Every increase in income will be absorbed by lifestyle inflation. You'll be earning 60, 70, 80,000 or more, but still living paycheck to paycheck. You'll have the same money stress at a higher income because the language patterns that kept you broke at a lower salary are still operating. Unexpected expenses will still feel like emergencies. Retirement will still feel impossible. You'll look around and wonder why everyone else seems to be getting ahead while you're standing still. And the cruelest part is you won't see the connection. You won't realize that the casual phrases you use daily are the invisible force field keeping wealth away. At 60, you'll still be working, not by choice, but by necessity. You'll watch younger people retire and feel confused, bitter maybe. You had the same opportunities, worked just as hard. Where did it go wrong? And the answer will be in 10,000 micro moments where you said, I can't afford it, instead of, how can I afford it? Where you said, I deserve this, instead of, does this align with my goals? Where you said, I'll start later, instead of, I'll start today with what I have. But here's the alternative future. You become conscious of your language today. You start catching yourself mid-sentence. When I can't afford it starts to come out, you pause. You rephrase, how can I afford it? Or I'm choosing not to buy this right now. It feels awkward at first, unnatural, but you keep doing it. Over weeks, the new phrases become automatic. Your brain starts responding differently. Problems that seemed impossible start revealing solutions. You begin to see opportunities that were always there but invisible to your old linguistic filter. 6 months in, you've saved an emergency fund. Not because you got a raise, but because your language stopped permitting waste. A year in, you're investing. Small amounts, but consistent. 3 years in, you have momentum. The compound effect of better language leading to better decisions, leading to better systems, is accelerating. At 45, you're genuinely wealthy. Not because of one big break, but because of a decade and a half of micro decisions guided by precise language. At 60, you're financially independent. You work if you want to. You don't if you don't. And when people ask how you did it, you won't know how to explain that it started with changing 10 sentences. Here's what this all comes down to. Your financial life is not primarily determined by how much you make, what the economy does, or whether you get lucky. It's determined by the operating system running in your head. And that operating system is built from language. Every phrase you use about money is a line of code. Most people are running buggy software filled with phrases that crash the program. I can't afford it. I'm not good with money. I deserve this. I'll start later. These aren't harmless statements. They're commands. Instructions to your brain about who you are and what's possible. Wealthy people aren't running better hardware. They're running better software. Their language creates an internal environment where wealth can exist. Your language might be creating an internal environment that's hostile to wealth, like trying to grow tropical plants in a freezer. Doesn't matter how good the seeds are. The environment won't allow it. Change your language and you change the environment. Change the environment and wealth becomes not just possible, but inevitable. This isn't about perfection. You'll still slip up. You'll catch yourself saying these phrases. That's fine. The goal isn't to never make linguistic mistakes. The goal is to become conscious, to recognize when you're speaking from scarcity, fear, procrastination, or emotion, and in that recognition, to choose different words. Because different words create different thoughts. Different thoughts create different actions. Different actions create different results. And different results accumulated over years create a different life. The wealthy don't have secret knowledge about money that you don't have access to. They have different linguistic habits, habits that can be learned, practiced, adopted. Starting today, starting with the next sentence you speak about money, make it count. Because every word is either building wealth or preventing it. There's no neutral. Your language is deciding your financial future right now. The only question is whether you're choosing the words consciously or letting them choose you.